Hello. This is an experimental kind of video. I haven't tried this before, but it's just occurred to me and I think it might be important. Forgive the ripped trousers if you can see them. So I'm Nathan, I'm one of Lubomyr's students, maybe his keenest one at the moment. And what I have here in my hands is this book that he wrote. One of the only things that he wrote, and he only made 50 copies of this book. It was privately published because then and now nobody really wants to give him any funding. And so Lubomyr was a philosophy student once upon a time. He had a master's degree in philosophy from the University of Manitoba and from Queen's University in Canada. He did his bachelor's in one and his master's in the other. I can't remember which way round, but both were in philosophy. And philosophy is very important for Lubomyr, as is a kind of spirituality. And part of what makes his technique so different from traditional classical piano techniques is that is this philosophy, but it's even just the fact that there is a philosophy already makes it quite different, I think. So what this means is during his lessons with me or with anyone, he's not terribly focused on how we're placing our hands on the keys. He's much more interested in how we're thinking about it and how we're feeling. And he gives us kind of little drips and drops of his philosophy, but this is the only place where it's really laid out in full. And very unfortunately, because it was never publicly published, I am one of the only people in the world to have this thing. And I thought maybe we should do a little series. I mean, it would take a very long time to go all the way through this book, but perhaps we should do a series where I sort of read this book out and discuss it. So it's called Open Time, The Art of Continuous Music. And this isn't quite A4 or A3, it's a strange, almost square format of the paper. And it's all done on a typewriter, as you can see here. Very, very old school. So this was made in the 80s. And it's a mix of text with the occasional score or piece of notation or diagram, such as here. And a lot of this is hand-drawn on. And he intermixes thoughts on the music from a philosophical perspective with literal descriptions of, oh, here's my weird notation that I'm using, here's what this notation means. He mixes it with technical points about like how the rhythm might work or how the harmony works, that kind of thing. So there's a bit of music theory in here as well, which I haven't spent too much time studying yet, and I really should. And then there are also diagrams, such as, this is quite a large spread maybe, not all the pages look like this. And it's quite erratically written. So he'll have a thought and then he'll stop, and then he'll just put a random new paragraph break, and he'll talk about something completely different, and then he'll stop again, and then he'll put something else, and maybe even in a different font size or something. This was written in a very stream of consciousness way. And sometimes he's almost just giving you aphorisms, kind of poetic comments, or, kind of old wise man sayings that don't seem to have anything to do with music at all. So it's a very interesting book, and I hope to see it properly published one day so that you can read it as well. At the moment, the only other copies are in various Canadian libraries, and there's about 3 in his house. This I bought from an American bookstore who collected it from some dead musicians' kind of exotic library and collection of things. But I think this was the last publicly available copy of the book, so I don't think you're able to buy it anymore from anyone. unless these Canadian libraries sell it, which they really should not. But if you live in Canada, maybe you can read this book. Okay, so maybe I can, well, I'm not really sure how best to do this, but because there are so many example exercises scattered through this book, I was thinking of playing a few things and discussing the text surrounding them. But for the first few pages, well, first 2 pages, there are no exercises whatsoever. It's just straight text. And I've copied that opening passage and I've put it on my website. I haven't copied the rest of the book, just the opening passage. But maybe I can read a little bit of it, sort of like a story time thing. So here goes, page 1. Is there anything to ask in this beginning, this first page, the question of a new technique? What does its newness consist of? Does it have any newness at all? What does it mean to say that it is a new technique? This last question answers all 3 of them because it is essential to the very beginning of our learning. To answer it, we must look to the history of piano technique. It is simple. It began with the arrival of the clavichord some time ago, and it became immediately the creation of a new technique, different from violin playing, different from any other instrument playing. It was really new. No one had ever played this way before. And with the piano, would we say the technique became different? Was it a new technique? Perhaps it was just a little different. It was playing the piano. And here he's put this in one hyphenated word. Playing the piano is kind of like one thing. And that has not changed. Already in its beginning, the technique became organic. It was understood innately how to play. The music was set by those who could play, and it was the music that taught us how to play as them. Because they played so well, better than us, they played to the perfection of the human entity, the mind and body fused as one. Pause. So here he is talking about people like Beethoven, people like Mozart, the real historical greats. And when Lubomyr insists on saying that the technique was organic or innate or whatever, that's kind of foreshadowing a main theme of this book. So the livingness of your playing, or the organic nature of your playing, is very important to Lubomyr, and Lubomyr would have you believe that this has been lost now, that it's not emphasized so much anymore. And hey, some people already agree with him. So in a sense, with jazz music, let's say, jazz musicians, of course, they like to improvise, and they're often stereotyped as saying, hey, there are no rules, man, or whatever, and just kind of really going with the flow, and they organically create the piece as you're watching them in an unplanned way. And that's really amazing. Of course, it is also a stereotype, but it is still amazing what they do. And Lubomyr is making a different comment to that, but I guess the basic sentiment is the same. And he's glorifying Beethoven and so on. They played to the perfection of the human entity. They played so well, better than us. Lubomyr glorifies these people because truly, he thinks Beethoven in particular is the best thing to ever happen to music. He feels very strongly about this. And a common misconception about Lubomyr is that he is arrogant, and it's worth dispelling this. So he thinks his technique and his music is wonderful in the sense that it feels wonderful for him, and it is wonderful for the audience in the old sense of the word. It truly causes wonder. You have no idea what the hell is going on or how he's producing this sound. But he does not think that he himself as a person is wonderful or great. One of my favorite quotes of his is he's talking about booting up his old Windows XP laptop, and they had run a little sound check on the speakers, and they played one of Beethoven's scherzo, just like maybe 2 minutes of this piece. And Lubomyr says that when he heard just the 2 minutes of the Beethoven piece, it sounded so amazing to him. And these will be on kind of pretty rubbish XP speakers as well. It sounded so amazing to him that he just wanted to go out and become a bus driver, is what he said. Meaning, it's as if he is worthless, right? So he elevates Beethoven and the classical tradition way above himself. It's just that he has a trouble with the modern interpretations of classical music. So here he is insinuating that the original players of classical music, Beethoven, etc., had a more organic technique than modern pianists, and in fact he believes that the traditional pianists from 200 years ago, 300 years ago, played in a similar way to the way he plays now, just better than him. But he thinks continuous music is new, but the essential idea was already familiar to people like Beethoven, etc. Anyway, let me continue reading instead of giving you too much context that you didn't ask for. So where was I? Right. They played to the perfection of the human entity, the mind and body fused as one. That is how we learn to do the same, because it was understood from within what we had to do, because what we had to do was not only tempting, it was full of joy, for us and for those who heard it. The technique had reached already long ago what it was to do. It filled itself out immediately because it reached that which it was striving for. It was already in our metabolism to do this. It was already perfect, but there are many ways of being perfect. So again, he's insinuating that his technique has in a sense been around for quite a long time, maybe just not recognized as such. And is this technique then enough? It is enough for what it has to say, but if music has another voice to speak with, if we can change our voice, what then? Should we call this a new technique or simply see it as our same voice singing in a new register? Let us say that we are setting out, in a present day attempt, to change the pitch of our voice. It has been for some time now at one pitch, steadily. That pitch is given, the way this is printed makes it quite easy to skip lines. It has been for some time now at one pitch, steadily. That is good. It is a wonder to sing at this pitch. When a new pitch is given, let us sing with that one too. Perhaps someday we could sing with 3 or even 4. Our voice could sing at one pitch, now it could sing at 2, but the journey to reach the second one is no shorter than that which led us to the first. No matter, we are always learning. Our time is for learning. Our time is for learning. So let us learn well to sing with this second voice. One thing is sure, we never know when we have learned it. That is a strange thing. That too is a part of time. All we can know is that we have taken a step. Certainly the view has changed. Perhaps we can rest here and look at how far we've climbed. But do not be fooled into thinking that this step has put you at the summit. We are always facing away from the summit, out, with joy at the height. Perhaps we can enjoy this altitude. Far away we see other mountains, but they are not the mountain which we are climbing. That one we must take one step at a time, never knowing when and if we have reached the top. So, some more comments about that. The concept of voice, or the language of voice, is very important for Lubomyr. Our voice could sing at one pitch, this new voice, etc. He views his music or his technique as simply a voice for the piano. And what this language does is it reminds you firstly that you are not greater than the piano, right? You are completely relying on the piano for this music. In a sense, it's a way of staying humble, right? This is not, if you play continuous music very, very well, this is not you being amazing by yourself. This is simply you finding a voice for yourself and also getting a new voice from the piano, and it's a cooperation between you two. But also it's a nice way of distinguishing continuous music from classical music or jazz or whatever. It's just saying, this is a new voice. It's another string to your bow. It's a different thing, but still part of piano music. So in particular, he will later, I can't remember when, but somewhere in this book, he will later refer to continuous music as the operatic voice for the piano. And he does like this analogy of singing. So continuous music, at least when he plays it, not when I play it, but when he plays it, it does often sound like singing. He's able to enunciate all these various tones. He can be doing this crazy kind of arpeggio all over the keyboard, and then he's just bringing out various different songs. And it's quite this clear, there's this clear, calm sound, which is very difficult to reproduce. I've never done it. So he likes singing analogies, and I find it quite helpful because, and any student should find this helpful, because even when you're learning his most basic pieces, there are still a lot of notes to think about. You don't want to think about all the notes. You want to let your hands kind of generate all the notes, and then you let your mind fall upon various, but not all of them. You choose certain notes and you let them sing out. And a traditional piano teacher might tell you to say, okay, well, you want to put more pressure there, or you might want to put, more dynamics on that note to bring it out. Lubomyr wouldn't really say that. He would just say, let it sing in your mind, hear it singing in your mind, and then your hand will just figure out a way of making that happen. And he's right, this does actually work, as crazy as it sounds. And this analogy about climbing a mountain is very common. It's not original to him. It's like the old proverb about the journey of 10,000 steps. You just begins with one step. Just go one step at a time. This is a pretty normal thing to say. And then he says, this book was not written in any sequence of steps. They are as much a surprise for me as for you. That's certainly true. So this is, no one else could write this book, really. It's kind of, it's often very funny. Like when I read this through last year, fully cover to cover, I was often laughing. Not at him, but I was just amused by how it was done. It's so stream of consciousness. Anyway, they are as much a surprise for me as for you. We are still filling ourselves out because we are alive. Because of that, perhaps we will never master this new voice. New voice meaning continuous music. We will never master this new voice. As we are too, it is part of time with us. We are doing it, yet no one has mastered anything, even ourselves, because we are everything that matters. Okay, so when he says it is part of time with us, this book is called Open Time. So this language of voice is important for Lubomyr. This language of time is even more important. It almost plays a role. He doesn't really mean a specific time. When he says it's part of time, he just means it is living with us. It's evolving, it's ticking along every second and every fraction of a second. It's not a fixed thing. That's part of what he means. And then he's doing this kind of wise old man quote. He's finding that voice for himself, because we are everything that matters. So he speaks like that a lot in this book. You'll just be reading some music theory and then suddenly he gives you an inspirational quote. And it's quite funny. I like it. So, even ourselves, because we are everything that matters. No words can find this pitch for you. Only practical discovery will. Practicing. We still do not know the meaning of this word because it is understood as something painful. The sunlight too is painful to the mole, I suppose. But painful is not the essential meaning of the word, though sometimes it is that, for sure. Bring oneself to practice. Practice so that you can know again what you have seen yesterday. If you knew yourself yesterday, you must practice today to know that again. If you can do today what was done yesterday, then you are already doing it better. And it is no pain to meet again the old friend. Keep him as a friend. You are older too. So when he says no one can find this pitch for you, he's returning to a singing analogy of you learn to sing one pitch, you can sing an A maybe, and then you can sing a C and so on. So he's thinking about steps in the journey of learning continuous music. So, and then this old friend thing is, I think, quite a cute analogy, quite a sweet way to think about what practicing is. And often it can be very demoralizing practicing Lubomyr's music because it's so difficult. And students of any kind of music will know what I mean. Any music is difficult. And it may feel like you are playing worse today than you were yesterday, but there is truth to what he's saying. So keep him as a friend. You are older too. So I've forgotten this question I once asked about this voice. Certainly, I'm still aware of questions. I just don't know how to ask. It has something to do with one step, not along a different way, to still the same way. We are just one step farther along. Let's not call this new. This taking of one more step, to take this little step, you must take many, many tiny, tiny steps. And these tiny steps are deceitful. They look so terribly big every time, before and after too. They too come and go in perspective. These steps are only as big as our reach can handle. The step of doing it is never at once, because it is made up of so many smaller steps, each along the way, to coming to reach that step. Every step is immense, because we have done it. It is neither hard nor easy. Those words are meaningless in practice. What is hard cannot be done, only what is done is easy. Therefore, simply do it. So you could write that off as just an inspirational quote, but there is something quite important to listen to here. Continuous music, once you overcome a hurdle, let's say that hurdle is kind of generating the opening flux of pockets of light, let's say, and properly doing it for the first time. I don't mean playing all the notes. I mean properly generating it in a natural and very calm way, such that the speed is very high, but it is also very calm and soft and quiet and everything, and starting to feel like you know what's going on with this piece, let's say, for the first time. I mean, that's just an example of a hurdle, and that one took me like 2 years to overcome at the least, if not 3. But as soon as you do overcome a hurdle in continuous music, it feels completely easy. So I don't think you really have this in classical music. You might be able to play something like the Emperor Concerto perfectly all the way through. I don't think you would then call it, oh yeah, it's easy, like you could just do it in your sleep. Very few people could say that. But with continuous music, genuinely, the moment that you have now learned how to do it, that same moment, it's now so easy, you're almost confused how you ever found it hard. So for example, with the piece Cloud Passade, there are these quite wide stretches in the right hand, which were initially very, very painful for me. And I couldn't play more than a few bars of this piece without kind of seizing up, like nearly getting RSI, repetitive strain injury. And then I went on holiday and I came back, and a month later it was suddenly, I did it, but then it was suddenly easy, and I can't remember why I ever found it hard. I can play this piece very quickly now with no pain whatsoever, and I can sustain it for 20 minutes or something. I won't do the whole piece. I've done the whole piece many times, but Like, that was very fluid, that was very easy. But it was almost that easy from the moment that I was able to do it. So when he says, what is hard cannot be done, let me not misquote him. Yeah, what is hard cannot be done, only what is done is easy, therefore simply do it. There is a grain of truth to that. And I have found that. Also, the thing that comes before, it is neither hard nor easy. Those words are meaningless in practice. This is important to understand. I mean, when you're learning anything, it's important to understand this in context, that just because other people find it easy doesn't mean it should be easy for you, etc. I mean, everything is easy in hindsight, but well, not everything. Some things are easy in hindsight. Continuous music is easy in hindsight. So there are so many things I struggle with right now, but I know that once I can do them, it's going to be like, they're all going to feel like the easiest thing in the world. But okay, let me proceed. Eventually, we have discovered that our voice can reach a different pitch. There is no reason not to sing with both pitches. Enjoy both notes, they are both necessary. A different pitch is given by a new technique. It necessitates the new technique. The two have created each other. From the music, learn the technique, and from the technique, learn what is this music. First, learn how to read, although this is not the beginning. First, in scare quotes, really doesn't come into it. Learn how to read before you begin doing it, but you are doing it while you learn to read. There is nowhere to begin, so let us begin anywhere. There are two things that must be separated: the ability to read the music and the ability to play it. About the physical experience of playing this continuous music, I have quite little to say. What there is will be found on a few of the following pages. The act of the playing has its own feeling, and that feeling is quite a lot different from the feeling of playing other types of music on the piano. The different requests that the types of music demand are inherent to the form in which they are written. Continuous music creates its own energy in the muscles, the body, and the mind. Once a technique is at hand for the player, the feeling will be evident, and that feeling is crucial to having the technique, and that feeling is near impossible for me to describe, even though it's so important that the player can know what it is. Yet, only practice will search it out, and that is why I say so little on it. And there's one other reason too, that once the music gets under the technique, there is almost no feeling in the hands at all. One feels almost nothing except oneself and the thought of the music's sound. So that what one can say, except for all the things that aren't there to be spoken of. Yeah. I think that's a typo. I think you meant to say, what can one say about it when there's no feeling, except for all the things that aren't there to be spoken of. So that has something important in it as well. You cannot apply the techniques of continuous music to pieces that aren't written for it. And you can't learn to play like Lubomyr by learning Beethoven or Debussy, whoever. And similarly, even if you learn a little bit what Lubomyr's playing is like, and you pick up some continuous music, you're very welcome to go back and play traditional pieces. You're very welcome to go back to jazz or pop or whatever. But what you've learned from continuous music will not be even slightly applicable. Not really. I mean, continuous music will give you maybe a new strength or calmness in the hands, but you will not be able to do continuous music in a format that isn't already written, for continuous music. And when he says the experience of playing this music, he has little to say about it, that's kind of a lie. He talks about it a lot, but it is true that it is very hard to describe, yet very important that you find it, and the student must just be patient. So in the first 2 years of learning this music, let's say I had kind of what we could call physical experiences, like at most half a dozen times. And then they became a bit more frequent, and then I began to understand the physical feelings you get more and more. And there's still a lot more for me to understand. But the point is, you need patience. It may be quite a while before you know what he means by this quote, but it is important to think about. Page 3 of this book now, he's just starting to explain his notation. So this is what I mean. He randomly jumps between things. So he's finished the opening statement. We now know what kind of man he is and how he's writing. It's an unusual way of speaking. And we are just greeted with a few lines of possible exercises, and he's showing you how he's writing things and saying a little bit about what reading this notation should entail. And is there anything here that I want to play for you? Probably not, because they're all kind of difficult. I mean, this book doesn't pull its punches. It opens immediately with some arpeggio work, and that's very hard. He doesn't put his students onto this until, after years of playing. I mean, he still hasn't really put me onto it, and I've been working with him for 5 years. So he opens with what is already a very difficult thing. So if you ever do get your hands on a copy of this book, don't expect to be able to play everything. Take it bit by bit. But anyway, I should stop there for now. This is already probably too long.